developing a fighter's career, I mean, it's tricky, right? Every fighter is different, and you have a better chance with the better fighter, right? But it, you know, I've done really well developing fighters from amateur to pros. That's kind of what I feel like I'm known for and what I'm good at. And for me as a coach, that also creates a lot of synchronicity with you propelling their career. You start them from scratch, you know exactly what you have in a fighter, you know the type of fights to get them, and so forth. So let's take an example from someone who has zero experience. We used to have smokers in the States where gyms would get together, we'd throw them in there and get experience, and you'd be able to gauge, oh this guy can handle it, oh this guy can't handle it, or this lady, you know, she's got to work on this thing or get over the jitters, but we can get her a little bit of experience, then we can start getting in a ring fight. So now they have these exhibition things, PKBs, a point Muay Thai. I know USMF is starting to develop some things along that lines as well, so that's very important, is to get that initial experience before you actually have a ring fight, because you never know what you're going to get in someone. They could look great in a gym and then freeze the first time they step in the ring. So getting them that ring experience through smokers or some form of exhibition fight is important. Sometimes it only takes one, sometimes it takes 3 or 4 to kind of get them ready for that ring fight. And then once you obviously have a ring fight, starting with an amateur, I mean, for me, I don't really look for easy way outs in amateurs. I look for fights that my fighter can win, as long as they perform well, but that'll also challenge them as well to be better. And then it's fight by fight, right? So, you know, let's take one of my fighters, Climaco, as an example. He came to me, he was 17, he fought 3 times in the youth division and was 1-2. You know, I wasn't crazy about them carrying over the record to an adult, but it is what it is. So I got him a fight that I felt like would be a manageable fight that he could win, but would also be a challenge. If he didn't perform well, he could also lose. And he just not stellar, but he was super aggressive, fought, won that first fight. So then it's like, okay, you take it the next step. Is this next person going to help him get better for the next fight after that? And so with Sean, he pretty much did that every step of the way, where he just kept winning and winning. And I think maybe his 4th fight with me as an amateur, he was 4-0 with me, finally got him an amateur title. And it was an ugly, terrible fight for him, but he gutted it out and won. And that's when I knew with him that I could build him, because in the last round I felt like he had to win the last round. I tell him, you gotta go all out, you gotta give me everything you have, and he did exactly that. And so once you know you have that type of mentality as a fighter, you know you can develop the technical aspect later. And then he just, I think that fight actually propelled his confidence, and that's very important for building fighters, right? It's not you're not just building skill, but you're building confidence that they can perform and execute those skills. And I think that gave him confidence that, okay, I can win those tough fights when I need to. And then he just started steamrolling the amateurs. His last 5 amateur fights, I literally tried to get him the best competition I could, and he went 5-0, knocking all of them out as amateurs. So he ended up 10-0 with me as an amateur. And what happened after that was it would start to get really hard to get him amateur fights. So I ended up having to turn him pro. Now normally I think that's too little fights for Muay Thai to turn pro. Normally I think about 20 amateur fights for US fighters, if you're going to turn pro in the US, is about the good money number there. It gives you enough experience, especially if you're able to get some international experience along that line, to where you have your feet under the ground going into pros. So, and then he just kind of kept it up as pros. The first 3 fights, I believe, were by knockout as well. So it's a kind of a gaugeable process, right? And you kind of have to go with how your fighter is doing. And if you have someone who keeps winning, obviously that makes it easier to deal with promoters, easier to market him and get sponsors because they're winning, right? Some other fighters have a little bit more ups and downs. It's okay for me. I don't look for my fighters to be undefeated amateurs, right? Like, I try to build them. I'd love for all of them to be undefeated amateurs, but at a certain point you have to test them, especially if they're deciding to turn pro. You have to know that they can step up to better competition, and that's just kind of where I've always been about it. So generally after about 5 amateur fights, I'm starting to look for fights that will help them be better fighters, not just that they can win. I want to thank Matt Lucas and Muay Thai Graham for having me. You can find me at either Smash Fighter on Instagram or Smash Fighter on Facebook, or at Coach Rudi on Instagram or Rudi Ott on Facebook. Those are the best ways to get at me. Hit me up if you have any questions.